What do you think normal is? I believe I have always had the misconception that normal was a synonym for nice. So you feel good, that's normal. Life is going well, the boss is happy with your work, you're getting along with everybody that matters, that's normal. And then one of those things isn't working the way we'd like. Well, that's completely abnormal. I have to fix that. I have to change that. I have to do something about that. But sometimes life presents you with something from out of the proverbial left field. It doesn't seem normal, it doesn't seem nice, but there's a lot of love in it. And sometimes that elevates us to a place we never thought we'd get. Hi, everybody. I am Victoria Moran, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Main Street Vegan Podcast, which has been running for a long, 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 long time. We started back in 2012, and we are weekly on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and visually on Victoria Moran NYC on YouTube. So thank you for reaching us one of those ways, or maybe some other way that I don't even know about. And I do extend an invitation to you to find out more about what goes on in the wide world of Main Street Vegan by subscribing at mainstreetvegan.com. And what happens when you subscribe to our weekly blog and monthly newsletter is that you get for yourself a free copy of recipes to help you age like a yogi. So, hope to see you there. And thanks for being here. So, today we're going to be talking with someone I absolutely adore. In fact, he is doubly adored because he has a fabulous spouse who is also part of this wonderful vegan work and healing work in the world, Dr. Ashley Baudet. But here I am talking with Mark Reinfeld, Chef Mark Reinfeld, whose wonderful fusion cuisine and his ability to make vegan gourmet and satisfying and even sometimes easy. How can you do all three of those things? Well, he can, and he teaches people how to do it in his wonderful award-winning programs. But today, although we'll probably get into a little food and a little cooking, we're really here to talk about something else. We're here to talk about something that I alluded to in my introduction, and this is Mark's brand new book, Islands of Peace, a compassionate guide for parents navigating the world of disabilities and special needs. As the father of a child with Angelman Syndrome, Mark blends lived experience with practical tools to help families create resilience, connection, and calm. He is also the co-founder of Ohana Vitality. He helps families cultivate strength, self-care, and community support. Welcome, Chef Mark.
Hi, Victoria. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, it's such a pleasure to see you, and I'm so happy that you wrote this book. I don't know your family well. Pretty much we see each other at conferences, usually Vegan Summerfest, where you actually work wonders at Vegan Summerfest. I mean, we all know what it's like to just cook for company and somebody's gluten free and somebody can't do fried food and somebody's allergic to tomatoes and it's a lot. But
Yeah.
at Vegan Summerfest, you manage to do a regular buffet, a salad buffet, a raw food, an oil free, a gluten free, a pizza bar. And you do it brilliantly.
Thank
So
you.
you're really good at juggling stuff, but I also know that you have been juggling something else in your life for several years, and these are
Yes.
the needs of your family. So talk to us a little bit about the origins of Islands of Peace.
Well, thank you for asking. It is a personal topic, like you alluded to, and I think those of us that have had experience where life doesn't quite line up with what our expectations are, there's like a a trauma associated with that, and like you said, also like an opportunity for like going deeper. And it's like for me, there's a many of us have the sense of like the bad things or the unfortunate things happen to other people, but not to us. And then when we find ourselves in a situation that we didn't anticipate, there's a level of kind of self growth that's possible. So for us, it was our firstborn child, who's soon to be 10. Uh, when he was around 2, we started noticing he wasn't hitting his milestones, and we went for some evaluations, and then they gave him at the Children's Hospital here in Denver an autism diagnosis, and like they give you a booklet that pretty much says like the dreams for your child are dead. Like it literally has something in that there, and that didn't quite seem right. And then we did some genetic testing, and then it isolated to chromosome 15, which could be a couple of things. And then we went a year thinking it was this other thing, and then we found out eventually that it was Angelman syndrome. And so it's in the rare genetic disorder category. So it for him it presents as being nonverbal and like global developmental delays. So that's we're about 5 years or so into the diagnosis, and that's the experiences and the challenges and the heartache and devastation and resilience, all that kind of culminated in the book that I'm really grateful I was able to put together.
Well, and I'm sure so is everybody who reads it. I find it interesting that Angelman syndrome is called a rare disorder because if my numbers are right, it affects 1 in 15,000 children. Is that correct?
That's what the statistics say. It seems more rare than that,
Well,
but
and that
it's
doesn't seem rare. That seems
yeah.
like really so just I guess it's one shock after another. Like, oh, that counts as rare. And then why me? Why us? So
Mm,
let's talk a little bit about what happens when you get information that someone that you love dearly is going to be struggling with
mm,
something for life, I
yeah.
presume,
Mm,
that you and your spouse will be doing that alongside him, but then also that you're vegan and you're plant-based and your wife is
right.
a doctor of naturopathy. And
Yeah.
I know sometimes in my vegan history, I've hidden having a cold
Mm,
because people are, like, oh, did you get into some dairy? And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, I just got into planet Earth. So
Right,
unpack a
totally.
little bit of that for us, Mark.
The sense of like the kind of the isolation part, or just
Well,
the like
that and
the
and the shock, I guess, first, when
yeah.
you heard it.
Yeah,
And
so
did you ask yourself those things like, but why us? Because we do everything right.
yeah, we did because it was like the child, the pregnancy and the birth were the pregnancy was very like natural, and we just it's like never anticipated that outcome. And I should say like the last few years I've been co-facilitating groups for dads who have kids with disabilities and special needs. I do a monthly group here in the Boulder area for all conditions. So we'll have dads with kids with ADHD or mild autism, all the way to like really severe medical, off frequent visits to the hospital, feeding tubes, wheelchairs, like the full spectrum. And then I do a monthly Zoom call for dads just with Angelman syndrome. And I think there's a commonality of when you feel like the universe is conspiring against you as an individual, there's like a heaviness and a weight to that. And I think that's where your mental health can kind of spiral down. But when you realize that you're not alone in this, there's a sense of support and community that we've discovered that's helped us kind of carry meet the circumstances as best we can.
So tell me about day-to-day life. I know you have two children,
Yes.
and it just seems, I mean, when I was first seeing you at Vegan Summerfest and met your family, and I knew, you were dealing that one of your sons had something going on that was more difficult than most. And I admired you for all the love and calmness and compassion and steadiness that you and Ashley both showed consistently. But what I didn't understand was the heaviness
Mm,
of dealing with something that, short of a bona fide miracle, will never change. And I
mm,
understand that now because my husband has
mm,
developed disabilities that, short of a miracle, will never change. And
mm.
just accepting this is the new normal, but how can it ever be normal?
Yeah, yeah.
So speak, wise one.
It's a lot of things at once. Like I think it's like they say that like the caregiver's grief is like I'm sure you're familiar with the stages of grief, like the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the sadness, the ex and acceptance. With this type of condition, it's like it's cyclical, so
Yes.
it's not like you're grieving something that occurred and then you're like putting the pieces back together. It's like an ongoing process. So I feel like, I mean, I've gone to like deep places of, sadness and also tapping into things, parts of myself that are bringing out strengths in me as well. And it's a combo. Like what I touch on it in the book is that the first section, and this is based on our journey for these 10 years and the experience of connecting with a lot of other dads over the last few years, that there's certain areas that I call like the hot spots. So like your mental health is a continual challenge to just kind of keep your head in a good place. And then with special needs parenting, you also have your partner's mental health. So you could be in a good place and they could be really struggling, or vice versa. So there's that aspect. And then that creates another part is the strain, the marital strain. So that kind of creates like the perfect storm. And then if you have other children, then the sibling becomes another concern for their mental health and the interaction between the what we call a neurotypical sibling and the ones with the whatever conditions they're dealing with. And then a big thing for a lot of us is a sense of isolation, in that you start to lose, like you were saying, it's like the vegan special needs parents, it's like you start narrowing the your circle of people that can relate to you and what your daily challenges and struggles are. So those are, and then there's the financial aspect of unexpected expenses and therapies and adaptive equipment. So the first part of the book kind of lays out, especially for someone who's like just new to getting a diagnosis, or they're like, it's like if you get the book that says the dreams for your kids are dead, then where do you go from there? And so the first part of the book focuses on just be aware these are the areas that you're going to be have some, challenges with. And then the second part addresses the tools, and that's where I found my resilience and sanity and kind of my spiritual core and connection, and where that the tools that we could talk about as we talk about the book, but that's kind of how I lay it out.
So in this beginning part where you were talking about the financial, talk a little bit about the American healthcare system from your point of view, because I'm looking at it from the other end of life, and I
Mm,
see this tremendous problems and gaps with Medicare.
yeah.
My husband needs ongoing speech therapy, and
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to get to the level that really would do any good.
Mm,
And to do it private pay, $250 an hour. I mean,
yeah.
regular people just can't do that. And so,
Yeah,
looking
it's
at it as a dad with a child who has these needs, where do people get help and how is it out there?
it's interesting because it does vary state by state,
Mm.
the types of services that provide. We're fortunate to be in Colorado as one of the better states to be in for services. Other states, I've talked to dads. I mean, I've spoken to dads in other countries where they don't even know what Angelman, the doctors have never heard of Angelman syndrome. So there's the where you land is an important part, but it is kind of a commentary. And I know we're both connected in our ethical veganism and the sense of like nonviolence and compassion and empathy. Those are qualities that like we aspire to cultivate. And it's very dramatically different, like when you look at some of the changes that are going on in the government, that this is, and like your situation, these are like the vulnerable members of our society. And it just seems so out of whack what the priorities are of who's where the resources are going to and who's being, left out. And I know there's a lot of anxiety in the special needs and disability community now with the uncertainty and services being dropped and things not getting covered. So yeah, that's a big concern.
Mm. So take us now just into your life, into your day, and some of the tools that you use to make sense of things and just get
Yeah.
through from one day to the next.
Yeah, so in that part with the tools, so a typical day in the life, fortunately, our son he's mobile, he's able to go to school, so he has what's called an IEP, an individualized education plan, and he's in a really good school. Uh, so that's a big support. If we were just home with him, it would be extremely challenging. I mean, he is mobile. The nonverbal part is pretty tough. So the tools for me that I emphasize are the community is a big one, and it's just like the idea that we're not alone. It's not the universe pinpointing us for like this type of suffering. There's other people that are in a similar situation. Another part is self-care practices. So it's the importance of like you've probably heard it, when that you're on the plane, they say put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your child because you need to take care of yourself. So a lot of parents, they're so stressed out and focused on their kids that they don't take that time. And I and both and Ashley being a naturopathic doctor, we know the importance of self-care. So I feel like I have a really solid self-care regimen that keeps me in pretty good spirits most of the time. And then a core part of the book is what I call these mental tools or affirmations that uh, I know you resonate with. They're kind of like just the little nuggets of reminders that I've had over the years, even before having a special needs child, going through like a divorce many years ago, like real losing my dad 25 years ago. Just my mom just passed away last year. So like the trauma experiences, like they're things like uh reminders. So like uh be still and know that I'm God is one of them. So like the importance of like taking that time to be still and letting your mind settle. Things like there's carpe diem of like just seizing the day. One really good one, it's like a lifeline for me, is the comparison as a thief of joy
Ooh.
reminder, which one of the therapists at work with Sage, she said, compare and despair. Like,
Mhm.
especially, there's a tendency to compare kids and you see your child struggling. So those mental tools, I say, are, between the self-care and those mental tools and breathing exercises and movements, that kind of keeps my head above water.
Oh, that's so great. Well, thank you so much for compiling all this and sharing your experience with others. Since you said be still and know that I am God, I want to share with you the book that I'm reading now that is just blowing me away. It
Mm.
was recommended to me when I was 23 years old,
Just a few
and
years ago.
I didn't like it. I thought it was silly. It's called The Impersonal Life. And at the
Mm.
time that it was recommended to me, trying to think, was it still, did it have no author? Because it's kind of like, I guess, Conversations with God, which I also never
Mm.
read because it appears to be written or spoken. I'm listening on Audible, so to me it's spoken, by God, which is
Uh-huh.
probably why when I was 23, I just thought, oh, this is ridiculous. But whether it's God or whether it's not, it is changing
Mm.
so much for me because the idea is we have these personalities and we have, our strengths and our weaknesses and all of our things that we're working on and the things we run into. But beneath that personal life, we
Mm.
have this impersonal life that is divinity, that is
Mm.
however you perceive of the divine or the great reality
Mm.
and to relate to that impersonal life. And it says this affirmation that you talk about, be still and know that I am God, several times. So I thought
Mm.
I would get it. And it was written in 1914 by some
Really?
kind of Protestant
Wow.
minister,
Oh, I'm going
evidently
to check it
like
out, definitely.
channeled or something. But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, I
huh.
mean that's one of the big ones. There's also like the Serenity Prayer as part of that. Like, and I've been reading a lot of like Stoic philosophy. So there's things like, the Serenity Prayer of just like what about this situation is outside of my control and what can I control? And so the diagnosis is outside of my control. If Ashley is in a stressed out place, I have to like accept that that's also outside of my control. So those are things that kind of help me keep more of like the inner place my inner life in a good place. But that there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, which is I read very frequently, where it's basically the idea that when we're confronted with an obstacle, it's an opportunity for us to access parts of ourselves that we wouldn't have been able to access if we didn't have that obstacle. And I feel like that's one of the core things of how I try to view this situation as a way like it's a Joseph Campbell idea also of amor fati, of loving your fate and embracing what's happening. So
Did you
those
say
are all
loving your
things that I think
fate? F-8?
it's another part of the book called Amor Fati, of
Okay.
love of your fate. And
Ooh.
Joseph Campbell popularized it from the philosopher Nietzsche, where he was saying basically like Nietzsche said the true sign of greatness is someone who could say yes to their life exactly the way it is. And that how Joseph Campbell framed it was that when you do that, he said, like the demon you swallow, you take that energy from. So, this huge challenge that you have, when you rise to meet it, that increases your stature to embrace your life fully. And so, that's part of the what I aspire to, is just really being able to say yes to this experience, try to find the lessons that it has for me, and to see if my experience can help bring some solace to other people, especially those who are just coming into the
Yes.
insanity of this.
Wow. So you talk a lot in the book, Mark, about building community and connecting with other parents, and particularly these fathers groups. I'm really interested in the fathers groups because I'm involved in a lot of kind of groups. I'm not anonymous about the fact that I have a 12-step background. I'm in obviously a
Hmm.
lot of vegan stuff. It's
Hmm.
women, 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 wherever you look.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's not true in AA. I'm not in that, so I guess there
Hmm.
are men there. But in the groups that I go to, it just seems like there's a lot of women looking for support and spirituality and all that. And you're there with the dad. So number one, how do you get them? And what's the deal with men and comforting themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, So when I think part of it was framed during the divorce experience that I went through. That was quite a while ago, 15 years or so. And through that experience, I did a divorce recovery program. And in that, what I found healing was when people can relate to what you're going through, there's a comfort that you can get from that in some ways deeper than what you can get from a friend or family member that loves you, but there's no relation point. Like they don't know what like that lived experience is. So that set up a framework for me. Like when we first got the diagnosis, I asked like the geneticist, like, can you connect us with other people that have this? So I had this natural reaching out, and that led me one of my other sons in his school, he is one of his friends' dads had his kid had Down syndrome, and so I said, "Hey, let's get together. What do you think about creating the space for dads?" And he was a psychologist, so we it started organically. I think we have about 75 dads now in the group locally here, and it's the turnout is amazing. Actually, Ashley does a monthly group for moms, and they'll do like happy hours or spa dates or hikes. And the dads are, I'll sometimes get 14 dads showing up for this. And I think the dads are like ready for a break. And the key to that, I think, is we keep it casual. We don't like force people to like, I'm always up for like the deeper work, but those gatherings are more casual. And what I find is just being able to just hang out with other men that have some sense of what you're dealing with, even though the diagnoses are all different. All of us, like, our idea of fatherhood is very different than what we thought it would be. And so it's just nice to like be with other guys who get that.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about having two children. I think because I was an only child, I was always very comfortable just having one child because
Mm,
I thought I would not know how to navigate those relational waters. Well, here
mm.
you've got relational waters on steroids, so tell us
Yeah,
about that.
it's one of the real substantial challenges is just the impact that the siblings have. And I think it's what I found it's interesting if the younger child has the disability is different than if the older child has the disability. Because
How
if the
so?
older one has it, the younger one eventually their milestones, they just like leapfrog over the older one. Whereas if the younger one's a disability, there's like this protective energy that an older sibling can have for their younger sibling. But it doesn't say anything necessarily about the challenges, but it's hard to know, like for a 7-year-old, what it's like to have a nonverbal brother, and it's just how much of what his challenges are related to just being a typical 7-year-old or having this. So I really encourage and families to like not sweep the typical child under the rug. And I know someone who they kind of were like, oh, like you start off, he's a normal one, he'll be fine, he'll be okay. And then later in life, they had a lot of challenges with that child. So we really prioritize the mental health of our younger child and try to give him alone time and just try to relate as much as we can to like his life
Mhm.
experience. So, but it's definitely a big area of challenge.
Wow. When you said alone time, I'm always reminded of, I believe her name was Joanna Wesley, the mother of Wesley, who founded the Methodist Church. They
Hmm.
had 25 children,
Whoa.
and she made a point of 1 hour with each child alone every week. Now, they may have been prosperous and had lots of servants. I don't know. But I just think, it's so important because we're all just looking to be noticed.
Yeah,
So let
yeah.
me ask you, and again, this may be a little bit selfish because My husband has aphasia, which is
Mm,
difficulty accessing language in
mm.
many ways. But what about communication? So your son, do we say first names or not?
Um, we could say my son. I mean,
Okay,
it's
your son who has Angelman syndrome,
mm.
is he fully nonverbal? And if so, or if not, how do you communicate?
It's I mean, it's challenging. So he's nonverbal. He vocalizes, but there's no like words. So a lot of these kids use they're called AAC devices, augmented communication device. So like you could hit a picture of the food, or he could say like I want and point to different things. So
Mhm.
it's a long journey, but that's one of the ways he communicates. And just like I think you uh, develop an intuition also when you know, like I'm sure with your husband, he can maybe
Mhm.
look at you and you could get a sense of his needs or what he's trying to communicate. So there's a lot of that, but it's definitely one of the challenge points of my unique experience of that, the nonverbal part of it.
It's so interesting to me that I have no trouble at all relating to companion animals because I don't expect them to be
Mm,
verbal.
mm,
But even before William developed aphasia, I would find myself so frustrated if I was traveling in a country where I didn't know the language, or if I was
mm,
speaking with someone who we didn't speak each other's language. The frustration of, but it's this, I'm saying it. Can't you? And
yeah.
it's uniquely challenging, I think, especially for people who are really verbal. I found
Yeah.
something not long ago called nonverbal learning disorder, and it
Huh.
completely changed how I define myself because I know if they had had that when I was a kid, that's what I would have had. Because people with nonverbal learning disorder, they are really good with words, sometimes brilliant, and they're absolutely hopeless at pretty much everything else.
Hmm.
And they just cannot relate to the world in terms of like mechanically or musically or artistically. And it's like, yes. And yet, for somebody like that to then be trying to do charades and,
Mm,
you know,
mm.
guessing, it's challenging.
Yeah, it's a biggie. I think a lot of parents can relate to just before a child speaks when they're a newborn and they're crying and you're like, what's going on? Is it this or that? And you can't, there's like the sense of like, helplessness in that situation. So as a child gets older, it's like it just becomes definitely one of the challenging spots.
Yeah. Well, you have such a beautiful piece about you. Do you have a personal spiritual practice? Do you meditate or any of that?
Yeah, I've gone. Well, it's interesting. I was going to say I've done substantial periods of observing silence myself, uh,
Ooh.
where I used to do
Ah.
some Vipassana retreats,
Mhm.
the 10-day silent retreats, and then I really liked being in that space of just feeling like kind of where you were saying that impersonal, where the our idea of our personality is a lot determined by what we're thinking and saying. And so when you're in silence, you could kind of peel away some of those layers of like your personal space. And so I did like a 2 months of silence in India, and then 6 months of silence in India, and then when I was on Kauai, when we started the Blossoming Lotus restaurant, I spent 18 months in silence, observing silence when I first got there while I was opening the restaurant. So,
So this was before you became a dad.
yeah, this was 2002 when I first moved to Hawaii. So I think that's why I could stay calm at Summerfest.
But isn't that interesting? It's almost like life was preparing you for what was ahead that you had no idea
Mm,
what was coming because very few people, I've known people, I've been on silent retreats myself, nothing to the extent that you're talking about, and how fascinating.
Yeah, it was the cosmic irony of it hasn't escaped me, but the daily sitting practice and taking time to be still and be quiet and just let your mind and your thoughts uh kind of mellow out, that is a core part of what I would consider the practice. And also I would say just like gratitude is an important part of my practice of just really trying to stay in a place of gratitude and appreciation for what we could either focus on what we have or what we don't have. And when we focus on what we don't have, that's where we go down. So I consider that part of my daily practice too.
And the idea of islands of peace, like your beautiful book, Islands of Peace,
Hmm.
is is we just find one and rest there for a while, and then
Yeah.
we can take on what's before us.
Yeah, that was the idea of it. That's where I was like, I it had just been I've been thinking about it's like, oh wait, this is like a peaceful, enjoyable moment. So you could rest in that, and then that could, give you strength to go back in, and you could actually create many of those moments, and then you kind of start building that foundation. And so that's why I really wanted to put the book out there, was to help families who are in, it's like you're thrown into like a crisis mode, and that could sometimes really overwhelm you where you can't put your head above water. And so the Islands of Peace idea is like, this is a moment where my head is above water, and what can I do to keep, without going on a month-long retreat or a weekend getaway, what are these like daily things that I could do to give me that sense of peace in the midst of it?
Mm. Well, bless you for writing this book and being who you are. So you have another project going on, Ohana Vitality. What's that?
So that was the idea for Ohana Vitality came, I spent 8 years living in Hawaii, and I really loved the Hawaiian culture and developed a deep appreciation to it. I still have my Hawaiian phone number uh,
Aw.
to remind me, but that was a really left an imprint on me because Ohana is a Hawaiian word for family. And when they say
Aw.
Ohana, it could mean your neighbor down the block who's helps out, or your uncles or aunts. They'll call, friends will be auntie and uncle. Like, so it's this idea of community and family that's not defined just by your blood. And so Ohana Vitality is like the umbrella for what both Ashley and I are doing with this, our desire to just support parents who are navigating this, terrain of special needs parenting. And so it's the programs that we offer. We've done a couple of overnight retreats. I've done 2 overnight retreats with dads up in Estes Park, and we recently did a family retreat gathering there. So we're just starting to put more energy into that. We'd love to eventually have a space where parents can come and chill and get the respite that they need. So that's like our vision for Ohana Vitality.
Oh, well, I love your vision. Love you. So
Thank
before we stop today, let's talk about what you do as a chef and your wonderful
you.
programs. I think you have a new one coming up now, so tell us all about it. What can you
Uh,
teach us?
Thank you. So it's interesting, like when I contemplate my purpose and like mission, like promoting the plant-based diet and the nonviolent ahimsa aspect of plant-based living is just really core to what motivates me. And so I love showing people how easy it is to create vegan food that tastes good. We could talk all day about why we should eat more plant-based or eat vegan, but if the food doesn't taste good, it's not going to go very far. So I view it as like a form of activism where you can help people, empower them to prepare delicious plant-based food for themselves. So I pre-COVID, I was traveling all over doing 5 and 10 day trainings. Actually, I have a 3 day in-person workshop coming up on Maui in January, one of my first workshops post-COVID. But I developed this 4 week deep dive program that I've been offering the last few years that I really love, and it really gives people this very strong foundation. I believe I've had one of your coaches took the first one that I offered, and it's just a deep dive into the techniques and recipes. It's via Zoom. The classes are recorded, so people can do it at go at your own pace. Ashley, Dr. Bude does 4 food as medicine modules. I do one-on-one coaching with students to help tease out where they want to go with the training. I've had people from all over the world take it, culinary students, people that want to include vegan options in their commercial offering, a lot of nurses and coaches and dietitians who want to add a plant-based culinary component. And the next one's coming up January 26th. So I, if you have any questions about it, I love talking about it and working with people to build their confidence in the plant-based kitchen.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah, I've taken some of your classes. You're really exceptional. Because I kind of moved away from cooking for a while. It was just like,
Mm,
I've been cooking my whole life. I'm tired of it. But
yeah,
it's so necessary. I think for
yeah.
people that are just eating the typical American diet, you can get these prepackaged whatever and you can
Mm,
order in and you can get frozen who's this, what's this. But if you're trying to really eat well, you
mm,
need to be able to feel comfortable washing a green bean. It's
right.
just the way it is. And
Totally.
you go, of course, so far beyond that. So
Yeah.
everybody, we have got here Chef Mark Reinfeld and his wonderful book for parents of special needs children, but I'm finding it lots of people, is called Islands of Peace. You can go to the website ohanavitality.org and find out about both the book and about the wonderful programs and support groups and courses and retreats that are part of that. And then for the cooking classes, and I will put all of this stuff on the show notes at mainstreetvegan.com. But cooking classes, Chef Mark, we go to Vegan Fusion Cuisine.
I'll send you a link because you could offer a 25% discount to your listeners. So I'll
Oh, we
send you a
want
special
that.
link. Yeah, I'll send you a special link for that.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. Well, I'll put the special link everywhere I'm allowed to put it, everybody.
It's
You know,
veganfusion.com. Or if they mention that they heard about it
yeah.
through the show, they could go to veganfusion.com and all the information is up there and just say the
Oh,
lovely Victoria sent you and
oh.
I'll give you that discount.
Well, that is so generous. So, just in our last few minutes, Chef Mark, what's what's on your mind? What do you want people to know?
I think like the big message to me is like that for people that are struggling with something, whether it's like I mean, it's specific to caregivers, so I think that you could relate to, but just this idea that we're not alone, I think is really important. And one of the tools that I have is this saying like I'm not the only one going through this. Like may we all feel peace. The sense that you're not alone and that to me there's a lot of comfort in that. So I'm happy to reach out to people individually if anyone needs more support or wants to connect with other support groups. There's a resource section in the back of the book as well for mental health resources, marital resources. So it's a pretty comprehensive guide.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I would say that this 50 minutes or whatever we've had has been an island of peace, and I hope it has been
Definitely.
for everybody listening. Thank you. Thank you for all you do, but mostly thank you for who you are.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Send the
And
same to you.
and
Awesome.
listeners, thanks for listening. And thanks for stopping by at mainstreetvegan.com, getting more information about Chef Mark Reinfeld and other things that are happening over there. And check out our friends at Compliment, lovecompliment.com. If you put in the code Main Street, if you want to order some of Compliment's wonderful supplements, protein powder, all kinds of great stuff made by vegans for vegans, you can get yourself 10% off, not just the first time, but forever, which is pretty cool. Lovecompliment.com. And you know what? I love you without the .com. So let us go out there and make Main Street vegan.
Amen.